So, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the welcome back to yet another session of Sitecore User Group Nagpur, which is run by Mahima Patel, Sumit Salpekar, Vikrant Punwatkar, and myself. So, I hope you all are doing good, and thank you for sparing some time to join our session on a Friday afternoon. So, today's topic is a bit refreshing as it brings back Sitecore Forms into discussion, and that too with SSG and in a Sitecore Headless implementation. So, in the next 1 hour or so, we will explore how we can enable static site generation with Sitecore Forms in a Sitecore Headless project or an implementation. This session will cover the benefits of SSG while maintaining the dynamic capabilities of forms provided by Sitecore. We will also look at the various implementation approaches, common issues, and resolution. And for this, our speaker for today's session is Manoj Chopkar, a Sitecore 10 certified and Sitecore XM Cloud certified IT professional working as a senior software engineer with Espire Infolabs Private Limited. He holds over 4+ years of expertise in web application development within Sitecore, XM Cloud, Sitecore upgrades to 10.3 versions. His hobbies include writing blogs at his WordPress site, where he shares his knowledge and robust understanding of UI technologies and Sitecore. So, without any further ado, I'd like to pass it on to Manoj, and Manoj, I welcome you to this session. But before I give it to you, a quick note for our participants to keep their questions with themselves and post it in the chat or in the Q&A section, and we will make sure to address them at the end. Over to you, Manoj.
Yeah, thank you, Neha. Let me share my screen. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, Manoj.
Yeah, thank you for confirming. All right. So, hello all, welcome to the session on Sitecore Forms with static site generation in Sitecore Headless. Quick introduction about me again. So, I'm Sitecore 10 and Sitecore XM Cloud certified professional. Expertise on working with Sitecore 9.3 and above versions. I expertise in Sitecore Headless application as well as XM Cloud application solutions. Yeah. So what we are going to cover in this today's session, let's have a walkthrough of it about the agenda. So first we'll have an introduction of the Sitecore forms. Although I'm aware like you might all be clear of what is Sitecore forms, why it is used, but still we'll have a small introduction of Sitecore forms. Second, we'll have a walkthrough on Sitecore Next.js app pre-rendering options. So there are various pre-rendering options available with Next.js. So out of which we'll cover like SSR and SSG. What is the difference between SSR and SSG? So then we'll be looking into the Sitecore Forms options with Sitecore Headless. What are the various forms options that are available for with Sitecore Forms in a headless solution? So we'll have a walkthrough of npm form package or JSS forms. It's also known as JSS form, but for the simplicity, we'll name it as an npm form package. Second, we'll have a look into the Sitecore embeddable form frameworks, and then we'll have a look on third-party forms, example Sitecore Send Salesforce. So we'll have a deep understanding of Sitecore embeddable forms, the Next.js implementation, common known errors, and each and everything for it. Then we'll have a quick introduction on Sitecore XM Cloud Forms option and the conclusion for it. So let's start with the introduction of Sitecore form. What is Sitecore forms? Why it is used, and where it is located. So Sitecore form. So Sitecore form is a tool that allows you to create a web form in your site without the assistance of a developer. It helps marketers create custom form, collect data, analyze performance, and it is situated in the Sitecore Launchpad. We do have a tab for it named Sitecore Forms. So it's available in Sitecore Launchpad. This is the basic thing. I hope you all are aware of it, but still. Yeah, let's see now the difference or the comparative analysis of SSG and SSR. Uh, why we are comparing SSG and SSR? We'll be discussing this more in the session. But let's see the major differences between SSG and SSR. Although there are various parameters on which you can compare SSG and SSR, out of which I highlighted few of those, which will help us to have a great understanding in this session. So let's start with the definition of SSG and SSR. So SSG stands for static site generations, and this is server side generation. So in static site generation, the pages are built during the build time itself. So whenever a site is built, it generates the HTML pages at the build time itself. As compared to SSG, in SSR, uh, it renders page on the server in response to the user request. So let's suppose a user hits a page. So the server has to bring back the HTML data for it and then render it on the page. So SSG and SSR, the rebuild time. Then we'll compare it with the rebuild time. Uh, for rebuild time, it occurs during the build process, rebuilding the entire site. So that means like whenever you build an SSG application, the build time, the rebuild time of the SSG application is generally higher because it builds the entire site, and since all the HTML pages are built during the build time, so it takes time to build the entire site. Uh, Compared to SSG, rebuild time for SSR is comparatively less, since since whenever a user hits a request for a particular page, it brings back the dynamic content for it. So when should we consider using a SSG application or a SSR application? SSG application is usually considered like ideally considered for a large static site with little dynamic content, and you can consider having an SSR application suitable for web application that requires real-time updates. So user request. So server responds with the HTML pre-built pages on the user request. So since the pages for SSG site is built during the build time itself, so whenever a user hits a request, the server responds to the pre-built pages that are already available with it. Compared to it, with SSR, the server processes the request dynamically and generates the HTML for it dynamic and bring back the dynamic content for the user. Content update. So whenever if you're trying to update a content for a particular SSG application, it requires the rebuilding of entire site, since like we have seen that for SSG application, the site needs to be rebuilt in order to generate a HTML for it. And compared to content update with the SSR gives the real-time update data. So whenever you have to update so for SSR application, whenever you request a page, you'll get the updated content for it. Load time. So load time, if you compare it with the load time, so load time of an SSG application is generally faster, because since the pages are built or already during the build time itself, and there is no intervention of any of the resources, server resources, or any of the thing to bring or populate the page. So generally the SSG applications loads faster compared to SSR. And compared to SSR, like for SSR application has higher load time, since like there is an intervention of server to bring the data and then display it to the page. Now, since we have seen the comparative analysis of SSG and SSR application, let's see few advantages of SSG application, since we are covering the SSG in today's topic. So what is the advantages of using the SSG application? Although again, there are many parameters wherein which you can have an advantages. You can think of having an advantages of SSG application, out of which we have highlighted the 4 key parameters, which is helpful for us if you consider with the help of Sitecore Forms. So advantages of SSG is like improved performance. With the help of like you have seen now the comparative analysis, the rebuild time for the SSG application is faster. It load so it helps to improve the performance of the particular site. It helps to load the page faster compared to the SSR sites. So SEO, like how it helps to like what's the advantage of SEO for the SSG sites? So since the HTML is already built during the build time, and there is already a HTML present, so it helps the search engine bots to crawl the content easily. So that helps to increase the SEO for the site. Again, reduce cost. Reduce cost is the important one of the important parameter which One of the important parameter of, like, you can think of having an SSG application, like cost plays an important aspect in your application, like having an application. So how it helps, like, let's suppose if you are deploying to a Versa application, let me show you a Versa usage for particular site. Okay, if you can see it, uh, you can see over here the Versal uses for the particular application. So these are all the resources that are utilized by Versal, like whenever you are trying to load or build an application over Versal. Okay. So once you exceed these resources, Versal will charge you dynamically. I'm thinking an example of Versal that can be any of the front-end rendering host over there, Versal, Netlify, anything. So now if you compare it with Versal, if you exceed these resources, Versal resources, it will it will charge you dynamically. So in order to maintain that cost, you can think of having, like, if you're having a huge site, and then you can think of having an SSG application so that it can help you reduce cost as well. Then scalability. Scalability is like serving a static files are easier and more cost effective than for the static sites to handle a large amount of traffic, thereby making it highly scalable for their application. Okay, so that's all about the advantages of SSG. So let's see the browser Sitecore flow when you are using a Sitecore Forms in a headless application. So if you can see over here, so browser Sitecore flow. So whenever a user hits, like a browser gets whenever you hit a page on a browser tries to get the layout service data from Sitecore. If there is a Sitecore form available, so browser tries to get the get the layout service data from the Sitecore. So in terms, Sitecore returns you the layout data plus the form data, schema data. So then with the help of JS helps to render the form schema to the HTML. And then again user fills out the form, post the data. Again this action goes on in a recursive way. So unless and until there are next step available, it will go on. So if you can see, it execute the submit actions and save for the, or save the from the further steps. Once it execute the submit actions, or there are any further steps, again the Sitecore gets the data to the browser. It returns the submit result plus the next form text schema, and if there are multi steps in it. So once the schema is rendered from the Sitecore, the the JS helps to render the form again and again post back the data. This way, like, the data flows between the Sitecore and a browser. So we should have an, like, an understanding of how the data flows, although it is not necessary, but still have an idea for it. So let's see, like, the various ways in which we can implement Sitecore forms in the headless application. So one is npm form package. Although you won't find anything named npm form package, it is also known as JSS forms. So since for JSS form, will be like we have to install npm packages. So for the sake of simplicity, we have named it npm form package. For using JSS form or npm form package way, you'll have to install two npm packages: JSS Sitecore JSS forms and React forms. So I already have covered this npm form package, a deep dive of it in the one of my sessions. You can have a look on it. So in this session, I won't be covering like much about npm form package way. So we'll have a look on like when to consider using an npm form package way or a JSS form package way. When should we consider like implementing using this way? So first is like first prerequisite is like you must have your application SSR and you must be using the REST layout service. So this is the prerequisites whenever you are trying to use an npm form package or a JSS form package way. When you're trying to implement Sitecore forms using that. If you are missing any of these prerequisites, you'll land up in the error. We'll have a common known. We'll go through a common known issues which usually occurs when you're trying to implement your Sitecore forms in the headless application. So this is the common known error, anti-forgery token cookie token issue. This usually comes up like whenever you're not meeting the criteria, like prerequisite criteria. Either you're using the REST layout service, but you're not using, like, your application is not SSR, you're using SSG. So in order to fix this issue, make sure like you follow like your application must be SSR and you must be using REST layout service. So although Sitecore has provided us Sitecore has provided us layout services, you can get data using the GraphQL layout service or REST layout service. So if there are like, what if your application has to be SSG and you want to use Sitecore Forms? Because since for the prerequisite for using Sitecore Forms is like using SSR only. But what if you need an application to be SSG? So what's the solution for it? So the solution for is like, it is like using Sitecore embeddable form framework. So we'll have a deep dive of Sitecore embeddable form frameworks, what it is, how it is used, what it uses, common known issues, the implementation for it, and each and everything. So what is Sitecore embeddable form framework?
Hello, Manoj.
Sorry, yes.
Did you say something? Were you saying something? I wasn't able to hear you, so I was just checking if everything's all right.
Yes. So like, where did you missed me? Like here
No, no, no,
only?
it's fine. I believe it was something at my end.
Okay. So can you hear me? No.
Yes.
Sorry. Yes. So we were on like embeddable form framework. So embeddable form frameworks help you display Sitecore forms on web pages. It also works with it helps to also works to like displays forms that are not even working on the Sitecore application as well. So what does Sitecore embeddable form framework use? It uses a lit library. Lit is a JavaScript template library that helps to create a template using JavaScript tag literals or a tag function. So basically, it is like we do have a HTML tag like HTML body tag or something, body tag, anchor tag, like many tags. So lit library helps to create your own tags. So with the help of lit library, you can create your own tag. We will be utilizing this. Like I'll show you an example where it is used inside a embeddable form way. So it uses Tailwind CSS or CSS frameworks, comprehensive set of your highly reusable classes, like same to Bootstrap, but with some additional functionalities or like a more optimized way of using CSS with the help of Tailwind CSS. So embeddable form framework supports accessibility. It also works with narration tools and screen readers. Uh, Also, one thing to remember when you're trying to use embeddable form framework, it doesn't affect any functionality or styles on the page. So what is the prerequisites of using Sitecore embeddable from frameworks? So the prerequisites is like you must be having a Sitecore version 10.3 and above, and your headless service should be above 21.0.0. So these are the two prerequisites for using Sitecore embeddable from frameworks. Although there is another way of using like Sitecore forms with SSG application, you can think of having an hybrid approach of it, like creating a two routes, one with SSG and SSR, and then displaying all the pages which are required, which are specific to forms on using SSR and having whole application in SSG. But if you want to have your application and if you are matching these prerequisites, if you are okay with these prerequisites, then you can think of converting whole application in SSG, and this will help you out. And this is really simple, like compared to having an hybrid approach of the Next.js application. So how can we implement Sitecore forms using Sitecore embeddable form framework? So first for that, we'll have to download the Sitecore embeddable form frameworks from the Sitecore website, like Sitecore website. So once you download it, you'll see Sitecore embeddable form framework. If you download it, you'll see two files, one JS file and the CSS file. So don't try to change the name of any of these files for the file folder or the file name. Just keep it as it is, just whatever it is. So you have to utilize this. Once you extract it, you'll see this Sitecore JS file and the CSS folder over here. So what you have to do is like you have to copy the Sitecore JS file, the Sitecore embeddable for your forms.umt.js file to your web application directory, as well as you have to copy the CSS folder. What is your web application directory? Your web application directory will be Sitecore like c initpub www or what your Sitecore host name, and there itself you'll have to paste it inside your root file. Remember, don't try to change the name. Once you try to change it, like it won't work for you, and you'll land up in error. So I tried changing it, but it doesn't work. So just keep the way it is, and then we can make use of Sitecore embeddable form. Once you copy and paste it, these files, you can make the use of Sitecore embeddable form. So on the web page where you want to display the forms, add a tag, a script tag that helps to refer to the embeddable form script. I'll show you the script, and then you have to add a SCF form tag to specify the form Sitecore form item. So SCF form, this is an HTML, this is an example of Sitecore lit library. Like I told you, like this we are going to use it SCS form tag. The same way we are using an HTML tag, we'll be using the same way SCEF hyphen form tag whenever you are trying to load your Sitecore page in it. So let's see an example of how like a Sitecore, like how can you render a Sitecore forms on an HTML using this. So this is an HTML implementation of the way like you can render a Sitecore form. So the Sitecore embeddable script, the script tag which we were referring to in the previous step was this script tag here, script TypeScript JavaScript, and this the site name and all. So this can vary. Don't go with this API key. This is not valid. This is from this this Sitecore host has been disabled. So the API key is not valid for it. So again, the SCF hyphen form tag, this form the lit library tag which we discuss right now. This tag this is created with the help of lit library. So we'll have to use this SCF hyphen form. We'll have to pass the form ID over it. So this is the form ID, and which is enclosed inside a tag again, the same way which you are using an HTML tag over it. So once you refer this script, once you have copy and pasted those JS file and the CSS file, will be referring to this form ID, you'll be able to see up the Sitecore form available on the web page. Again, this is like this is not a feasible solution. Like if you see, like we'll have to pass each and every form ID, like 100 of form ID. If you're having 100 forms, then we'll pass the manually 100 of forms ID. So how can we make it dynamic? A dynamic way to make it dynamic and use it inside your headless application, you can create a JSON rendering for it, named it Sitecore, like named it form. Make sure whenever you are using like when you are trying to create a rendering from for form, choose rendering context resolver. There is a form context resolver available. Make use of that. Select it well whenever using this form rendering. So once you create a JSON rendering, you can have this implementation, the Next.js implementation, wherein which we are trying to get the form ID from the props itself, and then uh, we are passing it dynamically. So whenever you render up, when you are on a page where you attach a form rendering, you can like and select a data source for it. So then you can get the item ID over here, and with the help of that item ID, you can render it within the form item ID. And again, this script is being rendered. You can make it dynamic all the way. So the best way is like having a Sitecore API host here, Sitecore API key, and all things. So this way you can create an Next.js implementation for it, like having a JSON rendering and utilize it on each and every page, the way we are having it for SSR application. Same way, like you're having it for the other JSON rendering, it works the same way. So this is the Next.js implementation for it. And let's see like points to consider when using embeddable form framework. So what all points you can consider, like the first thing is like you must be having Sitecore 10.3 or later versions. Second, your headless service should be 21.0.0 or later. And remember, like Sitecore embeddable form framework doesn't support XJB exclusive feature like submit actions, trigger goal submit action, performance tracking, robot detection, etc. So let's walk through the common known issues while implementing the Sitecore embeddable form framework. So if you can see over here, the towards the left hand side and right hand side separated with this vertical this line. These are two different issues. So one issue over this you can see is like a type error, failed to fetch, connection failed. This error. So you will land up in this error when you are trying to use custom submit action. So whenever you're having a custom submit action, let's suppose you try to modify some actions as a submit actions, and when you're trying to use a Sitecore form with it, embeddable form with it, so you'll end up in this error. This issue usually occurs because your Sitecore item ID is getting passed as null whenever you try to submit that particular form. So in order to fix this issue, like you'll have to pass the item ID inside your JS file, which you downloaded it from the Sitecore embeddable form. That JS file, you'll have to update that JS file so that in order you can pass the item ID. So like we have fixed this error, and if you need an updated script for it, wherein which you can how like you can see like how you can pass an item ID it's within the lit library within that JS file, you can like reach out to me on LinkedIn. I can share you the updated JS file to refer it. So once you update that JS file, you'll be able to submit this form successfully. Again, this has been like we have raised a feature request with Sitecore, and Sitecore is gonna provide you this Sitecore in future will help you out with this, like provide with the updated script with it. So meanwhile, if you're trying to implement using the embeddable form framework way, and if you're facing this issue with the custom submit actions, then you can reach out to me on LinkedIn for this. So this is one way, like this is one of the error which will come up like using this custom submit action, you're having it. And the second error, the loading issue, the loader issue, this usually comes up like when you try to change like any of the try to rename the file name, or when you have not pasted like either you're missing the CSS or JS file name from your web application directory. Again, again, and some a quick tip for it, like when you're trying to like preview it on localhost 3000, you can try to copy and paste the same JS and CSS file within your Next.js public folder, so that it will help you display the forms itself if you're facing this issue. So these are the common known errors, like two common known errors. Out of this, like you won't face many of the errors. Like there might be a chances if you're missing out some implementation, you might land up with the new error, but these are usually a common known issues. So that's all about Sitecore embeddable form. So let's have a like look on third party implementation form integration, like how like a third party forms are integrated. Like this usually works with like adding a scripts inside your Next.js application. So if you're trying to use a send py.forms Bravo and thing like any of the marketer tools and trying to implement a forms format using the third party forms, so this usually comes up with the script, embedding a script. Although if you are trying to use Sitecore products, Sitecore send, there are many ways in which you can connect it using Sitecore connect and all. So let's not get into it, but if you're trying to use Sitecore send, Sitecore py.forms, Salesforce py.form, or Bravo other marketing tool forms, you can embed directly your script form script within your Next.js application and use it. So I'll show you an example of Sitecore send script, like how can you embed the Sitecore, like what is the script, how it looks, and how can you display a Sitecore send form within your application, headless application. So this is a Sitecore send script, one of the form script in which helps to render a particular forms on a page. So the third party integration forms usually comes with the scripts. So once you embed this script within your Next.js application, you'll be able to see up the Sitecore send forms or the form which you're trying to refer. So again, yeah. So now whatever like till now whatever we have covered is not applicable for Sitecore XM Cloud. It is only applicable for Sitecore XM and headless application, XM XP headless application only. It is not applicable for Sitecore XM Cloud option. For Sitecore XM Cloud forms, Sitecore XM Cloud has like other tool like XM Cloud Forms option integrated with MoveSends again using Sitecore Send Forms. So you can think of having that options. These are not like Sitecore embeddable form framework, Sitecore JSS API way, JSS form package or NPM form package is not applicable with Sitecore XM Cloud form option. Okay. For that, you do have another application, another tool inside a Sitecore XM Cloud, which is known as XM Cloud Forms. So you can think of having that option, and that's all. Thank you. Any questions?
Hi, thank you, Manoj. I do not see any questions in the chat. A request to our participants, if you have any questions, please, now is the time. You can paste it in the chat and Manoj will answer all of them. Also, Manoj, that was quick. It was a short, insightful session. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Uh, and I hope that if we could make use of that, this knowledge that we've acquired in this session in any of our project implementations, then this session would be a success. Any questions from anyone? I guess no. I don't see any hand raises or anything in the chat. So, but still, if participants, you have any questions, like Manoj already mentioned during his presentation, you can reach out to him on LinkedIn, and he would be happy to help you all. So with this, we come to the end of our session. SUG Nagpur would like to thank Manoj for sharing his experience with all of us, and to all the attendees for sparing some time from their busy schedules for our session and showing your support like always. Thank you so much. And we'd also like to give a big thanks to Proficient for supporting all of our events like this one. Please note that the recording of the session will be uploaded on YouTube. So if you want to revisit this session or share it with someone who can find this information useful, then please keep an eye on LinkedIn and also our YouTube channel. Thank you all again and see you all at our next event. Thank you, Manoj. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thanks, Manoj. Thanks, everyone.